As a dog trainer, I've helped a lot of dogs learn to walk nicely on leash, but there's one piece of advice that I give to almost every client, and it really surprises them. If you want your dog to walk nicely on leash in a busy, distracting setting such as this, don't start training here. I don't even suggest starting on a quiet street. Nope, I suggest starting right at home.
Yes.
But almost every time that I mention this, the person will ask, but how will starting at home help my dog learn to walk nicely in the real world? So let me answer that by asking you this. If you were learning how to park a car for the very first time, would you go to a Costco parking lot on a Saturday? No.
That's not a terrible idea.
That's a recipe for tears, yelling, and probably an insurance claim. Yet I see people do the equivalent of this with their dogs all of the time. They take them to the busiest environments and they expect a great performance on day one when the dog has no foundational skills.
There's got to be an easier way to do this.
Just like you would want to start learning how to park in an empty parking lot,
Am I between the lines?
you want to start your dog's training in a quiet, boring place, such as your home, and then level up progressively. When dogs are overwhelmed by all the sights and smells outside, their thinking brain switches off, and that makes proper training impossible. By training indoors, your dog is relaxed, focused, and they're actually able to take in what you're trying to teach them. Starting here will get you here. So let me show you exactly how I train those foundational leash skills indoors. Instead of demonstrating with my already trained dog, I'm instead going to show you clips from my real training sessions with my client Gus. Gus pulled so badly on leash that his guardians had stopped walking him entirely. Let's fix that. Being dragged on walks sucks. You hate it, I hate it, everyone hates it. But a dog who pulls on leash isn't being bad. Humans naturally walk in a straight line at a pretty steady pace, but dogs naturally zigzag and change their pace frequently. When we tether them to us with a leash, that can cause frustration for everyone.
Why are you walking like that?
Asking a dog to walk nicely on leash actually means that we're really asking them to walk more like us. And because of that, learning to heel is a skill that we should train kindly. But there are two styles of walking that I consider walking nicely on leash, and there's a big difference between them. Heel is a very specific position. Your dog is right beside your leg, they match your pace, and they turn when you turn. It's structured and very focused. Loose leash walking is much more relaxed. Your dog can sniff, wander, and choose their position. The only rule is that they don't pull on the leash. In today's tutorial, we're just going to focus on heel training. I find that teaching your dog how to focus and walk by your side indoors makes both styles of leash walking easier when you do go outside. However, I do encourage teaching both styles of leash walking. If you want a clear plan for when to use heel, when to use loose leash, and how to train both, then check out my step-by-step leash training program in the video description. All of the training steps are explained with written instructions, photos, and linked video tutorials so that you can take your dog from a complete beginner on leash to one that can walk nicely in busy real-world environments. If you comment leash training, I'll send you the link to that step-by-step guide. Now, let's quickly talk about equipment. All that you're going to need for this training is a collar or preferably a harness, since a harness will protect your dog's neck if they do pull, a leash that's at least 6 feet long, and some high-value dog treats. Before we jump into the training, I want to quickly mention 3 big mistakes that I very often see people make when they're teaching a dog to heel. The first is starting in high distraction areas too soon, which we already covered. The second is expecting long training sessions to give better results, which it won't. And the third is relying on the leash for control, which brings me to my next point. This might sound strange, but when I first start teaching a dog to heel, I don't start with a leash. I find that most people rely on the leash kind of like a steering wheel. They use it to force their dog into a specific walking path. Think of your dog's leash like a seatbelt, not as a steering wheel. It's there for safety, not for directing your dog. I want the dog to choose to walk next to me rather than needing to hold them there. I find with my clients that starting leash training without a leash helps them see exactly how much guidance and reward the dog actually needs to choose to walk next to them. Dogs repeat what works, so if great things happen to them when they're next to you, that's the spot that they end up choosing to be. First, get your dog into the proper heel position. To start Gus off in the right spot, I take a step backwards, I lure him behind me, turn him towards me, and then reward him in a sit. Eventually, I do encourage putting this whole sequence onto a verbal cue, but this is Gus's first day of training.
Gus, get in. Sit.
Now he's in the perfect heel position, so let's start training. Step 1 is using a treat lure. For the first few repetitions, I use a treat lure to help Gus stay in that heel position as we walk.
Okay.
Holding a treat near his nose, I reward him in motion every few steps. This helps him to understand if you walk in this position at my pace, great things happen.
Yes.
I suggest trying to keep sessions short, usually about 15 seconds, so that your dog stays engaged with you the entire time. I also want to mention that if you have a very short dog and rewarding in motion feels difficult, then watch this quick tips video that I've linked on the screen. The technique in that video is also really helpful if your dog is a hand chomper like Gus.
It's a little pink.
To end a session, I either ask Gus to sit or I toss a treat and say okay to release him from that position. And between repetitions, remember to take breaks. This should feel fun. I also want to point out that I'm not cueing Gus to heel yet. Right now, I'm just starting the session with something like, let's go.
Yes, let's go.
Since I haven't actually asked Gus for anything yet, he can't get it wrong. He loses focus here, but that's okay. We're just practicing the action of walking next to me. Once I'm confident that Gus will stay in that correct heel position as we walk, then I add the cue. I love this kind of errorless training.
Let's go.
I like to teach the dog the action before I name it. I find that practicing the action first helps the dog more clearly associate it with the cue word later on. Once your dog can stay in that heel position with a treat lure for about 15 seconds, then step 2 is switch to intermittent rewards. This means that you're no longer going to be guiding your dog with that treat right in front of their nose.
Let's go.
Instead, just mark and reward every few steps to continue to teach your dog that staying in that position means great things happen.
Yes. Yes.
2 things to try to avoid as you're doing this is when your dog is walking beside you, a lot of people, including myself, is a mistake I always make, reward a crossbody, but as you can see, that is going to encourage your dog to actually cut you off, which you don't want. If you are so right-handed that it's really hard for you, at least try to reward, again, behind that hip level. And then the other thing is it's actually harder than it looks to reward in motion like this for you and for your dog. So just make sure that you're not doing this. Yes. 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 As you can see, even from doing that twice, Gus already got into the habit of falling back behind me because he thinks that the stopping is what's getting him the reward. So yeah, just making the habit of rewarding in motion, because what you want to reward is the dog for heeling, not for stopping. Yes. Let's go.
When your dog is able to stay in that heel position for about 15 seconds using only intermittent rewards, then you're ready for the next step.
Yes.
Step 3 is put this skill on a verbal cue. Now we're going to add 2 things into this training.
Okay, Gus.
First, the cue word heel, and second, a leash. But again, we're only using this as a backup, not as a steering wheel. I think of training a dog to heel similar to the way that I think of training a dog to stay. Once I give that cue, I want the dog to maintain that position until they're released. Therefore, the first few times that I use the cue word heel, I go back to using a treat lure to help the dog build the association between the cue heel and the action of staying by my side. Then I switch back to using intermittent rewards. Spending a couple of days teaching your dog a foundational heel skill indoors will give you significantly better results when you take training outside.
So I don't suggest taking your dog even in the yard or any sort of heel training until they can do in-house, intermittent, very infrequent rewards. Ready, Gus? Heel. Yes. So as you can see, I'm taking way more steps in between rewarding him. I'm just seeing how he's doing and whether he keeps falling. Yes.
It's also really important that now that we've added the heel cue, your dog stays in that position until you release them.
Yes.
To end a session, I either ask Gus to sit or I toss a treat and say okay to release him from that position.
Finish rounds either in a sit or I'm going to show you, and he's already practiced this indoors, is okay. Means he's allowed to leave that position and go chase the treat when I say okay. Yes. Okay. He is now allowed to walk anywhere he wants on the leash, as long as there's not tension. Yes. What you'll find, though, is a lot of the time, just like this, they choose to come back into position. Yes.
If you've enjoyed this video, I would be so grateful if you hit like and left a comment because it really helps other people find it. I'll be sharing the rest of Gus's training journey in upcoming videos, so hit subscribe if you want to follow along.
Yes. So this is that long history you've built over the last couple days, yes, of just recognizing that really good things happen when he's right next to you, and that's where they choose to walk.
Happy training. I'll see you in the next video.